Hey everyone, today I want to talk about the multisampler engine on the OP-XY. So there were several topics I was thinking of covering, and so I put it to a vote amongst my few Patreon members, and I got one vote, and so they have decided that we are doing the multisampler today instead of the other ideas, which I am all for. Before we even start, I want to mention that I'm using firmware 1.0.15. I'm still running into quite a few bugs. I'm fine with it because bugs tend to make me curious instead of angry, but I just wanted to let you know it's not like things are super smooth, but they are good enough for my purposes. So today I'm going to show you two demos. One is going to be a piano that I recorded onto my TP7, and then I'm going to be just sampling those notes. The second one is going to be the choir doll Carlo. And then the third demo I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my multi-sample library. I haven't actually tried this yet, and just throw different sounds onto different spots and just see what happens. I've renamed the project Piano because as you use the multi-sampler and you record different notes, it saves each of those notes under its own file. So if I open up here, we can see all of these individual sample sounds that I have. And if we go down to unnamed, because I started off on so many unnamed projects, or if we go to user, we can see all those. We can see that there's all these unnamed projects. And that comes from sampling when you don't have a project with a name pulled up. And it just ends up, for me, being very confusing and very annoying. So I've still gotten the habit of naming my projects before I sample, just so that way it's easier to keep track of those individual sample sounds later on, and they're kind of labeled in the XY. So let's pull up the multisampler here. I already have a preset here, so I'm going to hit Shift and 1. I'm going to just scroll through those engines until I get back to multisampler, and now we have a blank multisampler. There's a few things we're going to want to check here. Let's make sure the envelope is not doing anything. We're probably going to want to adjust the envelope later, but for right now, we just want a blank slate. There's nothing for the filter. We want it to be off, and we want the LFO off. I'm going to hold Shift and hit the instrument button. And from here, I'm just going to check, okay, there's no high pass filter. There's no width enabled. And let me turn this off because that was throwing me off on a stream on Thursday, and somebody helped me figure out that that was an issue. Okay. So we've got basically a blank slate here, and I'm going to open up the sample mode by pressing this button. And from here, I'm going to go and start recording from my TP7. So the way that I did this is I put two microphones, two CM15s, on top of an upright piano at Swallow Hill Music School before my singing lesson that I took. And I recorded the lowest C, and then G, and the next lowest C, the next lowest G, and so on and so forth. So I basically went through the octaves on the keyboard and played C and G. And so now we just have to record those into the appropriate spots on the multisampler. You can fit up to 24 notes, but you have to specify which note you're playing each time. So by default, it's going to assume that I'm playing like a middle C or maybe an F near the middle, but I started pretty low on the keyboard. So I'm actually going to go down 3 octaves here. I'm not sure if this is even low enough, but I'm going to pretend like it is. I'll hit this C. And then I'm going to hold Shift and hit M1, and that's going to enable the threshold. And once the input gets past that threshold, it will start recording. Now, there are some glitches with that specifically in the multisampler that don't happen with the drum engine or the synth sampler, but we're going to just roll with it, and we'll just adjust those points later. So let's record this first C. It's a little quiet, but we'll fix that later. Okay, the next note is this G. So I'm going to hit G, arm it, end the recording. Next note is a C again. Perfect. Go up an octave. Let's go up 2 octaves, and then we'll just go to this G because that was next. Okay, let's go to this G. C is next. Oh, so I did that a bit too soon. So I'm going to hit record, Then I'm going to hit clear. It still saved that recording, for better or worse, but I don't want that to be on that note. I mean, I don't want that sample on that note. Okay, so let's move up to this G. Move up to the C. And there's noises that you can probably hear in the background, but to me that's kind of part of the charm of doing my own samples, is that they're noisy, they're kind of unpredictable. I like that. So if you don't like that, then yeah, I don't know if you'll have the same experience as me with this. Because I've been having a blast. You can even hear my singing teacher there saying goodbye to the student before me. I kind of love that. I don't know. Is there any more? Oh no, I think I made it all the way to the end there. Yeah, so that was the last note. Okay, so we have all of our notes for our piano. And what I'm going to do now is, this may be silly, I haven't actually experimented with this yet, but before I even edit the piano, I'm going to record the choir doll, Carlo. So I'm going to see what happens if I rename this project. So I've renamed the project Carlo, and I'm going to open up this multisample, or this track on 7, and we're going to multisample into here, using that same process of getting rid of the envelope, turning off the LFO, and because we scrolled by that same preset, yeah, let's turn off. There we go. Okay, so I think that we're all set up now. Oh, let's turn off that high pass filter as well. Cool. So we're set up here to start sampling Carlo. I'm going to go ahead and connect the mic to being in front of Carlo, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so I've plugged in the microphone, and I have shut the door for my cats because my cat Pearl, the sweet girl, she will bite me when Carlo is singing. She has somehow figured out that I control Carlo. So let's get Carlo turned on, let's connect our XY to it, and then we will get to multisampling. So I'm actually going to make it so that way we can also hear the microphone. So that way we get a bit of a preview of what Carlo sounds like here. So let's go ahead and turn Carlo on and then connect to him from Bluetooth.
Hello. Searching for controller.
Okay, so I'm going to hit COM, spin this first encoder to advertise.
Please connected from controller.
Perfect, right? Wait a minute. So let's have it look for the controller again.
Searching for controller.
We'll see if we have to advertise it again.
Connected
Cool.
to mini controller.
Okay, so next things I need to do, and I already did this in a previous take, but I'm going to have to hit Project, go to Config, and I'm going to make it so that track 7 sends out on channel 1. Scroll down to MIDI, track 7 sends out on channel 1. Now, any channel is going to be picked up by Carlo. It doesn't really matter. He responds to all of them, much to my chagrin. But you want to make sure that at least something's going out, otherwise you won't be able to send MIDI while you're in the multisampler. So let's open up the multisampler finally. So here we are. We're going to have Carlo sing a bunch of octaves. Starting down there. Why not? I'm going to increase this threshold a bit. And I guess I just won't be able to talk through this part of the multisampling as much because I've got that other mic on as well. So I'm probably just going to play, similarly, I'll just play C's and G's throughout. You can play whatever you want. You could play 2 chromatic octaves if you wanted, but I'm just getting lazier the more that I use it. And I'll just use the same consonant sounds throughout, because why not? Beautiful. This is way too loud now, but that's okay. We're going to roll with it. And let's go up here.
Tweet. Beep.
Part of why it's sounding weird is because we're hearing this incoming audio, which I think is also sending to the effects, but for some reason, also when you go to a blank key, not only does it send MIDI out, but it's going to repitch the last thing I recorded, or the next closest note, so we're going to hear this weird layering effect that we won't hear when we actually play the multisampler back. Okay, we won't push Carlo any further than that. He's already done enough for today, right? So let's unplug that, and let's get to actually editing these two multisamples. Now this part is a bit more of the maybe tedious part, but it's kind of what you need to do to actually turn these into instruments, because right now they'll sound okay. Like, they might sound just fine enough, but first of all, like I was saying, the multisampler engine doesn't really auto-trim the beginning very well. And once it starts looping, it's going to sound real wonky here. So we don't want it to loop like that. We want it to be a bit smoother. So let's start off with that very first note that I recorded. Was it this C? Yeah, it seems like it. So what I'm going to do is let's use this first encoder to change the start point. And what I do is I just tap this, and when it feels like it's very responsive to me tapping a key, I call that good enough, because right here, it's not really that responsive. I just tapped this to zoom in, and so I'm going to find a spot where there's not as much stuff. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to use it, whatever. And then I'm going to start my loop in point. And I don't know exactly where to put it. I'll just put it here for now, and I'll put the loop out point controlled with a third encoder out here. That's still going to sound a bit wonky. You can hear where it's looping. So I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to slightly increase this third encoder, which is going to make it loop a little more smoothly. It's going to overlap them. If you want, you could move it a little bit to where it's almost silent after. And then it's just going to loop back and kind of crossfade the beginning with the end there, when it could sound pretty okay. Let's go up an octave and just, we'll do this note next. So same process. I'm going to find that start point. Find the loop point. Crossfade. Some instruments are easier than others. Let me turn off the sends that we've got here. Okay, so we can hear that. For me, a lot of it's guess and check. And I'm okay with it being imperfect, just because if I wanted it to be perfect, I mean, I guess I just don't want it to be perfect, really, is what it comes down to. So I just keep hitting the wrong buttons. Great. Who allowed me to make tutorials, am I right? Let's keep moving forward. Same process. Let's set that in point. So I messed up something with my recording from our friend Carlo. So let's see what we can do here to fix it. So that all sounds fine. This sounds not right. So can we replace just this one? So we'll have to go to user. Then we'll have to scroll down to maybe Carlo. Let's hope it says Carlo. And we'll have to find, what would this be? This would be one of the G's. That seems about right, right? Close enough, maybe? I don't know. Is that too high? I can't tell. Okay, something interesting to note is the way that it's naming this is it kind of implies that they're all in the same octave, which they weren't. So, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I need to report that, maybe not, who knows. Let's get back to editing. Okay, so I probably should have changed the octave that I started in here, but we're still going to work with this. It's partly XY's fault, partly my own fault for getting used to it, but at this point we can use it as a multi-sampled instrument if we want. Let's just add a high-pass filter. Let's turn on this low-pass filter, add a bit of envelope. Let's add a bit of release. And increase this filter envelope to being pretty fast. And let's send it to a couple of the effects. Let's send it to the reverb. And let's do that. Why not? Cool. We're just gonna, let's see what happens if I shift it up an octave by holding shift and hitting plus. Let's add some drums, why not? Let's actually change this kit to being the boop. Which I don't know if their goal is to name something the cutest thing, but it is adorable. Let's start to EQ this a bit. I'm going to change this to being my hi-hat track. This should be first and not second. There we go. Okay, so next I'm going to edit my piano sample, which is much the same as what I just did for the Carlo sample, but it's just going to be a similarly long process of finding the lowest sample, adjusting the start point, increasing the volume, and then finding a loop point for each one of these. Each one of these, that's right. It's going to take a minute. Maybe at the end of this I should mention how long it actually took without the edits. So it usually takes a good I don't know, 10 minutes or something. Maybe longer. Shorter if I'm not narrating though, so not quite as smooth as I might have hoped for, but that's fine. I'm okay with that extra noise being part of the looped part. I'm going to increase an octave, edit this next G. Okay, so after all that work, I finally have most of my instrument. I'm going to add a high pass filter, and let's hear what it sounds like on the lower notes. So we don't want to like totally ruin those. It'll probably make the higher notes sound better almost no matter what. I'm going to increase that amplitude envelope, and oh yeah, what did I play before? C minor, then a D, and then a G minor. Super original. Just kidding. So let me think about a pattern that might work well with that. So we'll just do that, and let's send this to some of the effects. Ooh, what if we instead turned on like the ARP or something? I don't know what this will sound like. Probably crappy. At the very least, it might be cool to do it this way. Okay, and for this last one, I said I would do like a mix and match multi-sample, which I really legitimately have not tried doing before. So let's give it a try, and we'll see what this is like. So I'm going to select individual keys here, and then I'm going to go through the sample library to pick them. So I held Shift and hit Sample, and now it's showing me all of my folders and all of the note names and stuff. So I was thinking I would probably just go through and let's just mix some of the onboard ones. What note is that supposed to be? 1? Anyway. So I figured I'd just... yeah, let's just put that there. Oh, but that's not on... let's clear that. Put it here. Gotta go down. So let's make it the dimension engine at first. We'll still have to edit these samples. But let's go to this next octave and let's find, let's do like my mandolin or something. Let's just keep screwing around then. Let's do one more mandolin. Now let's move to, well, let's add in a guitar. Why not? I recorded every string as being open on the guitar, which is why it's called that. Okay, so let me just edit these clips real quick and fast forward through that boring process, because we've already seen it several times now. Okay, so this isn't really something I would normally want to make, but I'm just kind of curious what happens if we do something like this, where we've got like, we put like a low C throughout here, and then what if we have like the mandolin playing, and maybe also some of the guitar too? Let's see what happens if we layer all this. This might be absurd. Interesting how much I messed that up. Oh no, it was the guitar. Interesting. Oh, so maybe it's just that. Maybe this one still just needs to be... There we go. Oh, so let's make it so it's poly. Probably also make it so that these get sent more to the FX1. Now let's do just like a little slight arrangement of this. Okay, so this is not a masterpiece or anything like that, but it's just what I've made using these 3 multi-samples and a couple drums. So yeah, even though there are some bugs, even though the multi-sampler can sound a bit lo-fi, even though it can be a bit tricky to get things to loop in kind of a smooth way, I like the sort of rough sound that I can get out of this and the different layers that I can get. I just find that I can make a lot of really dramatic sounding stuff on the XY, which, like, I'm a sucker for overly dramatic music. So I hope that you found this helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.